Hello, everyone. My name is Renata Block, and I am the host of Derm Dispatch for Dermatology Times. I am excited to be speaking with Dr. Harvey Castro, aka Dr. GPT, an emergency room physician, healthcare consultant, and AI futurist. Dr. Castro blends over 20 years of medical expertise with a passion for AI. His recent TED Talk, which explores how AI and humans can revolutionize medicine together, exemplifies the importance of collaboration and the full involvement of developing AI to transform healthcare practices, improve patient outcomes, and streamline operations. Today, we will focus on the future of dermatology. Hello, Dr. Castro. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to have you here on Derm Dispatch.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. I've been actually looking forward to this for a while because it's different from a lot of other types of medicine. So this is perfect.
It is perfect because, AI, it doesn't discriminate. It's going to be everywhere. And that's why I wanted to talk to you because specifically in dermatology, I want the listeners to understand the human AI collaborative workflow, right? And what it's going to hold for us in the future. So in dermatology, we have a very, very busy clinic. Not that you don't in ER, but you know, can you touch upon like the integration of AI into electronic health records and more importantly, like the return of investment because it can be expensive, right? And I think people maybe are scared of many things which we'll talk about, but can you touch about upon those two things?
Yeah, good question. So when it becomes integration of the EMR and let's call it the AI widget, whatever it is that you're working on, that is unfortunately one of the rate limiting steps in that if the two systems are not talking, you can't really use them. And when it comes to the financial side, having to create that bridge
Yeah.
can be a financial burden. And then going into what you just said, what was the second question? It was say that second part of it.
I think people are hesitant
Oh,
on
yes,
spending the money on it because it can be an
sure.
expensive proposition. Because, again, it's supervised learning, right? We're using deep learning, we're using supervised learning. We don't want it to hallucinate. We want to ensure, patient data is protected. So, how do
Yeah,
we know that we're purchasing something that's going to protect everyone and also provide us optimal workflow?
yeah, no, tons of information there to unpack. So on the return on investment question that you asked, I would rather flip it and say it just needs to be a set understanding that I have an electric bill, I have to pay my healthcare team, and I have an expense for AI. I would highly encourage you, and I know it's hard because I'm a former CEO of a hospital, to look at it as like, okay, if I do X, what is my return of investment? Instead,
Right.
look at it as, here's my budget. I know this is a cost, and I know I've already put it in as a general cost, just like I already know I need electricity, I need AI.
Mhm.
Now, on the financial side of that return on investment, and that's why I said think about it in that term, then you know it's already an expense. That way you're not saying if then. If it returns X, then I will do it. You're actually saying no. This is now the standard of medicine. And you're like, whoa, it's not standard yet. I'm saying make it as if it is. That way in your mindset, you're like, no, this is an expense. Now,
Right.
on the return on investment, because I know that's not going to go well for a lot of CEOs, they're like, yeah, I don't know about that one. Look at it as there's a suite of different AIs, and there's a triangle of, or pyramid of how things are needed. Basic life for us is breathing, right? Or making sure our doors are open. Because if the doors aren't open, that doesn't matter for the other stuff. With that said, I want you to start thinking of AI as a partner that needs to be there. And as we start integrating the different AIs, we have to be mindful for what you just asked. And you said supervised learning and that the data set is correct. Now, just because I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I have an understanding of AI and I have a, let's call it a widget, that widget may not represent your hospital system. The data set may be so off that my AI really is not going to help you. So that's where we need to start really thinking about who are our experts, who can start looking at the different AIs and really creating that community. For example, if you and I were to suggest a certain AI for the hospital, it would be biased already because I have a feeling of what I would like to see. You
Mm,
have a feeling what's important. But the real answer goes to who is the patients we're serving, having them as part of the committee, who is in the front lines, who are the physicians, PAs, uh, front desk, and then let's look at the C-suite. Because if we don't align all of those understandings and goals, then we may inadvertently, you and I, come up with an idea that really isn't needed.
yeah. And that's a great point because it's so nuanced even, for each specialty. And it can't just be flat across the board, everybody gets the same AI system. It really has to be specified to what is needed, let's say to a private practice versus a hospital.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's all about my favorite phrase is let's work backwards. What
Yeah.
is the end goal? Is my end goal to change my efficiency, or let's just be specific, to decrease mortality, help capture certain diseases earlier, and then we know our patients have chronic disease. Can we leverage AI to increase the speed of them getting better and the
Mm,
prevention of them even getting that disease? And so
right.
when you start looking at those things, and now it changes the workflow. And
Right.
saying the workflow, I've said it a couple of times, we as a culture, in my opinion, is the rate limiting step. If your CEO, the C suite says, no, we don't want that, we want this, or, whoa, that's too out there, I don't want anything to do with that, then that's your rate limiting step. My take home right now is the following. I want everybody to take just a quick second and self reflect. When you first heard of ChatGPT, what were your initial thoughts? How were you using it? And then
Mm,
take a pause and then think of that same question today. How are you using it? How has your mindset changed? And everyone out there will be like, whoa, I am doing things differently. I have shifted. And that
right.
shift is what I'm talking about. You can't see what you don't know. But once you understand, get the
Correct.
education, come to these types of podcasts. Now I call it the AIIQ. We start getting better and better to the
Right.
point where now I understand. And as a culture, I'm more likely to accept X, Y, and Z.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, as far as like policy. So, what actionable policy or development strategies are critical to ensure AI systems are built with equity, right, and accuracy? There's there's a lot to choose from, or is there not a lot to choose from? And is it something that we can design for certain specialties?
Yeah, good question. You see, AI is only as fair as the data that we feed it.
Right.
If here's a great example. I was the keynote speaker for Germany in May and for a dermatology conference. And when I was doing my research, it really hit me hard when I started realizing, gosh, when I went to med school back long decades ago, the books that I read was biased. It only had certain population. It only showed me certain diseases.
Right.
And I reflected thinking, wow, I don't remember seeing certain diseases in certain types of populations. And if those are the books training the AI, then if we're not careful, then the AI is going to propagate that same bias. And so, to answer your question, how can we make it equitable and make sure that this thing is accurate? Then I really think we need to look at that data set. And again, the data set is different and it may change from across the street. One hospital may be the same system as another one, but as we know, different payer mix, different populations. And so as a result, if that AI is not reflective of that particular data set, it may propagate the wrong AI. It may say those wrong biased decisions and so forth. And so how do we fix it? I truly, truly think we need that AI food label so that I know as a CEO and as a doctor and the front staff and team and whomever that can look at it and say, wait a second, this was never trained on X population.
Mhm.
So moving forward, I know I could use it on these populations, but when it comes to X, I really need to be a doctor at that point. I really need to sit down and think, can it still apply? And if it doesn't, what are the biases? And then how do I correct my thinking so that it does help that patient?
Right. And you make a great point. And I have a very important question. Is it something, if we integrate AI? So, for example, if we integrate AI to detect skin cancer, right now it is feasible for Fitzpatrick type, 1, 2, 3, 4, and not really so much for 5 and 6 because we just don't have the data. Hence your books, right? We don't have the data. Is it something then, if you bring that tool into the clinic, you can train the AI by taking these images, right? And then having the images in this database, and then allow the person who developed the AI to start integrating these darker skin complexions into the system.
Yeah, very well said. Honestly, there's different sizes of these models and there's different training for these models.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly, I'm glad you said that. This is exactly what I want to see. I want to see different hospital systems leveraging small language models, smaller data sets, along with the data scientists to be able to help create and make sure that it's being trained correctly. And then, yes, the answer is that's definitely the way to go.
Right.
That way, that particular hospital is training on their particular data. And not only that, taking it to the next level, there's something called federated learning. Let's just pretend we're all friends in dermatology all over the world and we share our data, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't share it's Harvey Castro's data. We just share that this is the skin, this is the lesions, and this is what the AI sees. And think of it as weights. And so we're submitting the weights to the cloud. The entire world of dermatology is sharing it. And then that weights is distributed back to the hospital. And then that hospital, think of it as a database that is able to take some of those weights and then leverage for their own data set and then use that as the output.
Can someone create like a monopoly of that? And which, again, is that really fair? Number one, but I guess, that's business. But again, if we have like a shared data set to develop this, to me, I'm always thinking about the patient. This will help our patients, right? But is it going to be easy to monopolize?
Unfortunately, there will be some bigger entities with bigger
Yes.
pockets that will already see the writing on the wall and want to monopolize this type of information so that they can turn around and sell it to everybody else.
Right. And then
And
again, is it then going to be a feasible cost, or is it going to be like a no choice? I have to get this, and this is the only one around. So something to ponder, of course. But, I think patient trust is an issue as well. How can, I'm going to focus on dermatologists here, dermatology providers and health tech companies. How can we build patient trust in AI assisted diagnoses?
yeah, I'm going to go back just for a second for what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this can be done, in my opinion, efficiently and I hate using the word cheap, but cost effective to the point where, if done correct, you can compete with the big companies out there. I really think that can be done, and we can go into that later. Now, to answer your transparency question, I see AI as a second pair of eyes. I see it not replacing me. It's just
Mhm.
giving me information. Case in point, as an ear doctor, I have so much data coming at me. And unfortunately, some of my patients come from other healthcare systems. And sometimes it's 2 in the morning and the systems either don't talk or I don't have that
Mhm.
data. In this particular case, wouldn't it be amazing to have AI fetch the data, create it, see where that person was, and with the dermatology, being able to look at it at a microscopic level. Our eyes, as we all know, we're all getting older. We all get distracted, but it sees what we cannot see.
Right.
With that example, if we can use that to leverage my physician or healthcare flow of patients, helping me see things maybe that I didn't see right away that's coming in 3 months or in a year, and be able to say, oh my gosh, AI is catching this. Let me be proactive in medicine instead of reactive in medicine. And that's now I know that was a whole build up to the trust. Now, how can I show trust? To me is pretty simple. I need to create the Bill of Rights for my patients. I need to be able to have on the wall a transparency saying, here are the AIs, here's how it works. For more information, scan this QR code, takes you to a website, and then it gives you that food label. Here are the biases, here's how it's done. For more information here, throw in some video so that patients really see the transparency and they're like, okay, I see why this works. I see how it is. I see the bias. I see why it's helping me. And then I know the slippery slope would be patients may want to opt out. And with that situation, it gets a little difficult because if it's already inherent into the system, it's already happening in the background, no matter what.
Mhm.
But that's another ethical issue for later to discuss.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's our responsibility to discuss with them the risks and limitations of us using it, and being transparent, I think is instrumental in building that patient trust. And I know already it's happening when we are scribing and using AI to scribe and take notes for us. But at the end of the day, we still have to review that, right? We still have to review and make sure that everything is correct, but it definitely helps optimize our workflow.
Hmm.
So, I want to ask you about clinical trial and validation standards. What are the most critical clinical trial and validation standards that must be met before an AI tool can move from research to a routine clinical deployment?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because this is a new science.
Yeah.
Luckily or unluckily, depending what side of the fence you're on, the FDA is there saying, okay, we are making a standard, and unless you meet this standard, you're not going to be able to definitely use it because this is now an FDA approved device, which is a blessing. But then it gets really hard, right? Because we have these prospective multi-site studies with different populations, and then does that really apply to my population? And so
Right.
then it becomes a little hard. And then the other part of this is who's training that data? Is it
Right.
dermatologist? Is it general doctor? Is it an ER doctor? Or is it, no disrespect, somebody from another country that's reinforcing that data, and then now it's used in the United States and doesn't apply. Just to give you like a snippet of where I'm going with this is when ChatGPT 3.5 was released in 2022, they were paying people in Africa to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Mm,
A lot of these individuals were not physicians. So they're looking at medical data saying, yeah, that sounds good to me. And then others saying, no. How in the world, as a physician, can I rely on a non-physician saying that enforcement of that data? Taking it to the
yeah.
next level. In dermatology, same thing. This is critical. And we know dermatologists went to school and the clinical gestalt of dermatology, and then you have a non-dermatologist saying yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah. Another level of social media out there, right? We have people coming in the clinic all the time and saying, I saw this on social media and I should be using it. And we're just, again, I'm very open and asking them for me to see what they saw and really kind of setting them on the correct path, but that again, we are so limited in time to see the patient, and we have to make sure that we're educating them. So I want to ask you, as AI becomes a powerful diagnostic adjunct, what are the risks on automation bias and the degradation of foundational diagnostic skills? And that is a big fear, right?
Yeah,
For our future dermatology residents, and even PAs and NPs that are in school as we speak. I'm afraid of them being taught this and then relying on it too much.
good question. To me, AI should sharpen our judgment
Right.
and not replace our judgment.
Right.
I I'm going to say this biasly. As an older physician that didn't have some at some point the internet, didn't have social media, didn't have AI, the neuroplasticity of my brain is such that I had to be creative. I
Mm-hmm.
had my favorite phrase in residency is like, Harvey, you just got to be a doctor on this. You need to think it through. Simple example that everybody can relate, especially physicians. If my potassium was 10 and I'm talking to you, you'd be like, no, dude, your potassium's not 10. You'd be dead. With that said, we need dermatologists to be trained dermatologists, not button pushers of AI.
Right.
We need the
Right.
future clinician must know how to disagree with the machine and
Right.
be humble to understand when the machine is right and
Mm-hmm.
when I am wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so that skill set is tough. Here's where I'm going with this. With the younger residents, love the residents to death, love the new physicians. And the way I see it is their brain, going back to the neuroplasticity, is learning a different skill set. And if
Mm-hmm.
we're not careful, they will de-skill. They will change the way their brain works to the point where some part of the brain that is not being used, just like a muscle, is going to atrophy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a worry. And so, how do we fix that? To me, I think it's quite simple. I think it's simple, in my opinion. We need someone like me, I'm going to call myself an elder, to be able to educate the young dermatologists that may not have the years of experience, my clinical gestalt, that call it the spidey feeling, whatever, so that way they understand. And we need to encourage them when we test them, not to test them on a phone or a computer, but we go back to the basics of
Right.
verbal exam so that I can analyze your brain, how I can see your thinking, your algorithm, and then I can teach you. Because think about it, our first doctors in the world, it was not this medical textbook. It would be like you just hang out with the preceptor. So let's
Right.
go back to that and let's have these conversations and let's have a day or times that we turn off the AI to force our residents and our young population and even the older ones to think. And the reason, again, I'm biased because I really think my neuroplasticity has been set. I think a certain way. And I could use AI all day long, but I'm aware of the good, the bad, and the unknown. I'm aware of how to leverage these tools, and I'm careful not to change my brain on some things. Another
Mm-hmm.
quick example, I'm a horrible speller, and it's gotten worse because now I'm like, I'll just right click and it'll tell me. And I'm like half typing it. And does that make me a worse doctor? Maybe. Or now I can say that brain power or that other parts is now working and focusing on other things.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like math and the calculator, right?
Yeah.
So I think you make a great point in regards to the training and the our future healthcare professionals. Now is the time to make sure we set that messaging correctly because I feel like it's a vulnerable time because it could go either way. And I think we have to make a commitment to ensure that it moves forward correctly. I want to bring up skin cancer detection because there are a lot of tools out there. I have to say, again, the FDA is pretty strict on what is allowed. And when it goes into the patient hand, obviously it has to be perfected in the clinic first, right? Before we even allow that to happen. What do you feel is the future in regards to the next major frontiers for AI in skin cancer detection, in managing chronic conditions like psoriasis and atopic dermatitis? Because it's coming. Will there be something that will hone in specifically on the patient's, obviously skin color we talked about, specifically patient like your digital twin that I know I want to talk about as well. So obviously we want to optimize treatment response. What are the next major frontiers on that?
Yeah. So I want everybody to think, and this is my biased opinion again. I think the next wave of AI is more longitudinal than just diagnostic, meaning we'll be able to have, in my example of the digital twin, the patient's genetic makeup, their EMR,
Mm-hmm.
predictive analytics, and we'll be able to know before that child was born where that disease process is. And is there's a genetic pre makeup that may make a propensity for a certain disease.
Mm-hmm.
And we will look at it longitudinally so we can say, you know what, age 8, this person has a hypercholesteremia disease. They're going to have a heart attack in their mid 20s, but we're going to start seeing some skin lesions because of their cholesterol is going to be so high. And we know it's coming So we can start looking for it. And so in that journey, we're doing predictive analytics. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just pretend they now have X disease. And now we can use AI to say, hey, here's that person at this timeline. Where are they going to be in 3 months, a year, if I make this intervention? And then we can continue through the lifespan of that patient. And so I want you to think of it in terms of we're not diagnosing, we're just looking at the entire continuum of the disease process and hopefully catching it before it happens. And if it does happen, hopefully we can elongate it so that it doesn't get to that final terminal stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then throwing
Yeah.
in another pearl would be like CRISPR technology. And we correct the gene so that doesn't exist for your grandchildren.
Mm. Wow. And again, your point of being proactive instead of reactive. Again, I think the lifespan will then extend a lot. What is it, like 70s and 80s now? So what are we thinking? Maybe 150 in about 100 years, maybe?
I think the children being born today will average 120
Yeah.
in
Wow.
lifespan.
Right. Right. I don't disagree with you at that point. Is there anything else you want to add about what you're working on and share with us so we can be on the lookout of what is coming up next from Harvey?
Yeah. So two things real quick. Number one, I'm blessed. I'm an emergency room doctor for 20 years. I'm working for this company called Phantom Space. We do rocket satellites, data centers in space. And in the future, what I will be doing is once we have that network for the planet, I will be doing everything we talked about in this podcast, but from a satellite point of view and pointing down to Earth and helping our healthcare system and catching things from space and changing the way we see healthcare. That's the first. That's my long term. Short term for 2026, I've been developing my own digital twin. I It's not about living longer, it's about living healthier and having more years in my life than
Mhm,
years of decades into 100 or whatever.
mhm.
And so what I've done is I've taken what we've said. I've taken my genetics, I'm taking my information, my wearables, I'm applying my MD, I'm applying the AI, and I'm putting it all together to see how can Harvey be the best Harvey? How can we rewind the clock? And so I feel proud to say I'm about to be 52. And I know I don't look 52 because I'm using these tools to help my health so I can improve. And so that way, any issues that I have, I'm being proactive, I'm taking care of myself, and I'm using research science to make the best version of me.
That's so exciting. I love it. And I can't wait to see everything come to fruition. And if you need a female sample for a digital twin,
There
I'm
we
your
go.
girl. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. It
Thank
was
you.
such a pleasure to speak with you. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for us in the healthcare setting.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here.